And then finally, our game on NBC 7:30 prime time per usual. Big Ten Saturday night college countdown starts at 7 o'clock. Number 2 Michigan at Minnesota, Little Brown Jug, which we're going to get deeper into in a moment here. But Michigan, as we talked about, they just destroy Nebraska in Lincoln, which is no easy task. They sell out every game over there, and that's a fantastic environment. But 45-7, the final score there. Minnesota got a much-needed victory to snap a 2-game skid over Louisiana, 35-24. That's not an easy one. Louisiana's a good program, and they played well, especially through that first half. In fact, they had an advantage going into the second half, and Minnesota found their way through it, especially considering they didn't have Darius Taylor, their star freshman running back, as he was ruled out just before the start of that game with an injury. So the hope is that he can return against a stingy Michigan defense. But you hit on Michigan. Minnesota's the more, I don't even want to say concerning side, because they got a really difficult win week 1 against Nebraska and found a way to basically just steal that game, it felt like. But PJ Fleck has been consistently good at the helm there in Minneapolis. He just seems to have success every single season. And you've got a Michigan team that's rolling right now. And as we said, plays to their identity week in and week out. So if you're Minnesota, how do you possibly affect what the Wolverines are doing?
Well, I think if you're Minnesota, first of all, I mean, PJ has done a really nice job there. I think we all kind of knew they were going to take a little bit of a step back this year because of some of the guys they lost. And it's just been tougher for them. And then, when you lose your best runner, and they've always been able to run the football, since he's been there. And so that hurts. And so hopefully they can get him back. But in this game against a Michigan team that really has no weaknesses, you're going to have to do some things. You might have to, do a fake field goal or a fake punt. You got to find some way to steal a possession, a couple trick plays, because you're not going to just line up and go toe to toe with them. Now, in years past, maybe you felt good about your offensive line, your running games, your quarterback, all that. And maybe you could hang in there like that. But Michigan is nobody really has success doing that against them, because eventually they wear you down. And their offensive line is outstanding again this year. Their defensive line is outstanding. So if you're Minnesota, you've got to find a couple ways to steal some possessions, maybe get some turnovers, do some things that are unorthodox, and get that home crowd riled up and involved in the game. And so, Michigan showed me something, like you said, going out to Lincoln and just kind of silencing the crowd there. And they'll have to try to do the same thing again here when they go to Minnesota.
So to me, that's the key. I've been to Minneapolis, but I haven't done a game at the university. And so to see what that crowd's like, see what this environment's like, I'm curious just for my own, personal stuff, but even just to see how those fans, that fan base, can react and kind of rile up for an opponent at that level.
Well, it's not as big of a stadium as Lincoln or Ann Arbor, certainly, or other places in the Big Ten, but it is a pretty rowdy crowd. Now, I will be interested to see how many Michigan fans there are there. I'll be curious to see how many tickets Michigan fans got and how many people wearing maize and blue make the trip over for this game.
Yeah, it's a good question. All of this leads us directly to our Xfinity Big Connections. And it just makes sense that we would stick in this rivalry. It's the Little Brown Jug Trophy. And let's just kind of dissect what that means. Well, teams first played each other all the way back in 1892. Trophy was introduced in 1903. It was actually just a Michigan water jug. They were concerned Minnesota had maybe contaminated their water supply, so they brought their own water with their own jug. And in the 1903 game, it ended in a 6-6 tie, and Michigan left the jug behind. Well, Minnesota found it, and they decided, all right, let's decorate it and remember the game this way. And so they didn't play again until 1909, and that's when the trophy started getting passed back and forth. So it's literally just a little brown jug. That's what they're playing for. But it's the oldest trophy game in all of FBS football, and it dates all the way back to 2009. It's also 2 founding members of the Big Ten going toe-to-toe. And while Michigan has dominated this series overall 75-26-3, and Minnesota has only won 2 matchups since 1986 and 2005 and 2014. It's a trophy game, and there's always something a little bit extra in terms of emotion that goes into that. You talked about it earlier with Auburn and Georgia, the Deep South's oldest rivalry. In theory, throw the records out the window. And, Auburn did deliver a great performance to keep that game close. And it feels like if Minnesota can just keep it as close as possible, keep it within a possession or two going into the fourth quarter, then you allow your fans to get in it, allow the home crowd to hopefully impact some of the football game. But I do love the fact that they're literally just playing for a tiny little brown jug. That's all that it is.
Yeah, no, I love trophy games, and the Big Ten, leads the country in trophy games, right? So, I mean, we get to be a part of one of them, and hopefully we'll have a competitive game and a game kind of like we had last week with Michigan State and Iowa.